Welcome to the Elevated Entrepreneur. I'm your host once again, Raylan Davis. I'm here with a phenomenal guest. Before I get to that though, there's two amazing things you can check out in the description below of this video, of this podcast, I should say. One is the free Facebook group we have for you. Make sure you go check that out. Also, our guest has brilliantly created this employee engagement survey. It's a swipe file. Literally, you just steal it from her. It's phenomenal. So if you are a up-and-coming company that wants to ask the hard question, which is, are we doing a good job or not with our people? Which, by the way, you may want to not download this if you want to avoid that hard conversation, but that's in there below. But my guest today, her name is Gwenevere. She is the founder and CEO of Guide to HR. She is a wonderful human being, and I'm so glad you're joining us. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Gwenevere, welcome.
Thank you so much, Raylan.
I need to get those buttons that's like applauses, like and stuff. I'm going to get there. We'll get there. Okay, so the first thing is this, right? I want to know your journey, how you got to where you are right now and creating the company you created. But here's what I want to say about your brand and what we're trying to do with your brand is I want to make HR sexy. You know what I mean? I want to make HR something that's like, yeah, because I'll be honest with you. And this is the part that I know people that are listening like, HR, like, you know, I have 10 employees. Do I really need to start thinking about that right now? And I'm telling you right now from experience, people, if you're listening to this, is that I'm having to go back now and do job descriptions. I'm having to go back now and figure out, okay, but what does this person even do? Like, we get really bogged down, I think, with the idea of what HR is. If we have corporate experience, we're like, well, I don't need that, right?
Right.
But then when you're scaling, especially if you're in a position where you're growing fast, it's one of, again, it's crazy that I'm saying this, but I think HR, and I don't even say HR, but like systems, processes, these things are the most important part of it. And it's crazy I'm a sales guy, Gwenevere, and I'm saying that. So anyway, I just want to preface this with, if you're listening to this and thinking, why HR? Listen, it's so important, and don't be like me and wait till the last minute. So with that being said, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, if you want to build your house on sand and rebuild every time the tide comes in, then go for it, right? But if you want to build more on foundation, that is where you are going to need your systems and your people and your all the foundation that makes a business run behind the scenes that most founders just don't want to deal with, which I get, right?
Yeah.
You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to do what you enjoy doing, and that's where my business comes into place. So how did I get here? Well, I've been in the corporate world for almost 2 decades, and I loved every minute of it. I'm definitely an HR nerd at heart, and I feel sometimes really blessed that I feel like I'm playing a lot of times with what I'm doing. And I got to a point in my career where I was a victim, like so many others, during the pandemic, and I took finally 2 years later, took a vacation, 10 solid calendar days off, and I came home and I looked at my husband and I said, my burnout has burnout and I need to take time off. So I took a pause, and thankfully I was blessed where I was able to do that. Not everyone can.
Wait, sorry to cut you off. By the way, I'm going to do this a lot, but like, was it the pandemic that gave you that pause to make you think about like where you're at versus like you were so busy that maybe you didn't think about it before? Was it that pause that made you realize that you were burned out?
I think it was the fact that I was in a startup company, went from 120 employees to 600 employees in 2 years, went from about 12 million to 115 million revenue, IPO'd on NASDAQ, had an M&A deal. And when I started, there barely was an HR department to begin with. And so really building all of that out, I didn't put in the right structure for me to be healthy and to really be able to grow with that company and be in a place where I could mentally and emotionally and physically last. So when I had this vacation, which was actually a wedding.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so like when you say systems, like do you mean outside of work or do you mean boundaries? Like what do you mean by
boundaries?
Systems? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, boundaries. I didn't put in proper boundaries for myself. I was working 12 to 14 hours average a day plus weekends, and there was just so much that needed to get done, and I was having so much fun. I kind of in my mind was like, well, I'm having fun, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then really, not really realizing, no, it's not okay. I do need to put in boundaries. Do need to have breaks. I do need to talk to my husband, talk to my family, talk to my friends, maybe pick up a book. I had to dust those off.
Especially for
So,
you, I would imagine, because again, now knowing you as an entrepreneur, you're still driven. Like you're a driven individual.
mhm,
And so for you to go, I'm gonna half ass this job isn't like it's not a thing. Like
I can't do
it's not
it.
like anybody who had a gun to your head working 12 hours. Knowing you now, I bet that you were loving doing it. Like you did it. You know what I mean?
Guilty,
Like
100%. Yeah, yeah. And there was a point in time where I told my husband, I'm like, not to equate myself to a dog, but can you please go and walk your wife? Like
yeah.
I had to have him like pull me away from it, and help me kind of create those boundaries. And I still like, I look back and I go, oh, I did a horrible job, and where can I improve on that in the future? Yeah. And so it wasn't until I kind of hit a brick wall of I was forced to stop because we had this vacation. It was my husband was in the wedding. It was a wedding in Mexico. We had to go. Oh, had to go. It was, it was
Yeah.
wonderful. And then, you stop and it's like, oh man, I stopped. Oh, wow. And that's kind of when you're just on this merry-go-round. You're just going, 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 going. Cause like, I am very much about getting things done and feeling accomplished and what's the next thing. And I don't necessarily stop and celebrate what I accomplished yesterday because I'm too busy trying to accomplish what I need to do for tomorrow.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, that was definitely a really big learning moment for me as a human being on needing to create boundaries and recognizing that as much as I am having fun, I'm not just that. I am a human being that likes to do other things.
Yeah, no, it's so funny we're talking about this because a few different reasons. Well, for one, I've been reading this book, and I'm going to send it to you. I'm pretty much going to send it to I think everybody that I know because it helped me so much. And it was Kayla, my fiance's mom, was like, Raylan, you need to read this book. And it's funny because it's called Driven, and it's about this gene that like Navy SEALs, high level entrepreneurs have, right? Long story short, they talk about this thing called NPY. It's neuropeptide Y. And if you're high in this, you do exactly what you just said, which is you don't pause ever to think about the past. You're always on to the next thing, next thing, next thing. People, doctors, nurses that are in the ER, they're high in NPY because again, they're constantly go, 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 go. And so what's funny is like that pause for you was so helpful because then you go, well, what do I even want at this point, right? Because you get that pause. What's funny is I literally just did a podcast on this by myself because I said, I realized because of this book, and again, I promise I'll send it to you. But because of this book, I realized if I slow down or stop, I get depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew why. It would just happen out of the blue. And even when I was in corporate and now, sales, whatever, when things were going really, really, really well, I wasn't needed as much. So I wasn't traveling as much and I would always get depressed. And, my family has a history of depression and whatever. And so I figured, oh, it's just that. No, after reading this book, I go, oh my God, it's because I'm used to this certain level of dopamine from fix, fix,
Mm-hmm.
fix, 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 or in my case, grow, like build business. And then it gets going. I go, oh, I'm going to build another one and another. And then it's that everything is going okay that my mind starts like eating it. So it's good that at least you didn't get depressed. You at least, you had a moment where you go, what do I even want?
Well, I will feel guilty if I do give myself that moment to watch that hour program, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
to pick up a book and read for 2 hours. The first half an hour is probably me fighting the demons of you should be doing something else. Like you have too much
Yeah.
on your plate. There's so much you need to accomplish. Why are you sitting there doing nothing? And so I do struggle with that little inner demon of mine of like, it's okay to like take a break. You need it, right? And that's where I think personally that's where I struggle.
Well, I think
Like
too,
it's
and
okay.
this has helped me. Now, granted, like I am not here to tell people how to live their life and argue. Like again, I'm very honest about like where I fall short. But one of the things my mentor of mine, he grew like a really successful multiple $1 million business, and it's just two people. It's crazy. Not scaling through people, he scaled through money. So
Yeah.
instead of going, hey, I'm going to come and do this for this amount, he goes, now that's like 20x what it was, but he just won't scale with people. And so it's brilliant. He's a brilliant guy. Anyway, he told me a long time ago, Raylan, life isn't a marathon. It's a series of sprints followed by extreme rest. And I never got it until recently because what he figured out was if I'm constantly moving, even if it's a little bit, I don't have that time what you did, which was that break of going, what do I want? And so
Mm-hmm.
now we're trying to structure it where I go out of town once a month for even it's a 4-day weekend because I sprint, I'm go, 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 go. And then now, like we recently went to Sedona here in Arizona. Beautiful.
Nice.
It's like,
Yeah.
energy work and it's very like, chill, And literally, it was nice because I sat by the pool and it was a moment for me to go, do everything that we're building, do we want this? Do we actually want to do this? And yes, we do. Hence why I'm still doing it. But it's nice at least to ask yourself, I think, every quarter, every month, whatever works for you, after the sprint of slowing down and going, do I even fucking want to do this? Is this for me? And then sometimes it'll be yes, and then sometimes it's a no. So anyway, you take this break, and then you realize, okay, this maybe isn't what I want to do. What happens next?
Well, I take 2 months off and I pretty much go into hibernation mode.
You took a
Like
sabbatical.
I took
That's a
a
sabbatical.
sabbatical. Yeah, I did, and reassessed who was I without the title, who was I without the work, and what did I want. And
What
you
did
know,
you do
I'm
for 2 months? You see my face? I'm like, what?
I know.
What did you do?
Well, a lot of healing from my prior journey because there was it was a very negative world. So a lot
Yeah.
of healing from that. And yeah, I look back and I go, man, I wish I was more accomplished. I wish I could say, oh, I worked on my hobbies, or oh, I got this done. But I pretty much like slept in. And I was what finally, well, not finally, I was what a lot of people had the unfortunate opportunity during the pandemic, which
Yeah.
was to binge watch stuff. I hadn't even picked up a remote for over 2 years, kind of concept. So I started binge watching and catching up on
Yeah.
TV and so forth, and just really like I pretty much just turned my brain off. Like I completely unplugged from that perspective. I mean, I wasn't even engaging in any of my networking, my social events, like nothing. I just pretty much like I went dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I came back up and I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to come back to the world, and started looking, okay, well, I got it, bills are piling up. I got to start paying them, and started looking, well, what do I want? So I put everything I wanted in my next career, my next opportunity to look like, and what did that look like for me? And as I started interviewing, I was like, well, this company has 80%, this company has
Mm.
70. Like there was just nothing I was seeing that really fit what I wanted. And I started kind of going, I wonder if I should go into the consultant world and dive into that. What does that look like? How can I even start doing that? And I was just really blessed. I had a friend who knew I was starting to look, and he's like, look, I don't have full time, but I need help with this. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah. And that was my catalyst for kicking off my business. And then from there, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to like legitimately work to see if I can make this be a true business for myself. And it just honestly, as I started to create my website, I created my mission, vision, values. I created what the company was going to do and who we are as a company. It just flowed out of me. And I'm a math major. I don't like words.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to write at all.
Yeah.
And it just basically pen to paper. And like, I think I might have had like two like reiterations of it, but ultimately what I initially put on there is what you can see on my website, and it just flowed. So
Did you
I
know
was like,
anybody that
wow.
was a consultant before you decided to do it? Like, did you have anybody that you could like had a blueprint or something like that you called and said, hey, like, how do you do this? Or did you just say like, I heard about this consultant thing, I'm going to try that?
A little bit of both. I mean, I have a couple of consultants in my network whom I kind of leaned on and said, "How did you start? What did you
Mm.
do?" I really kind of reached out to my LinkedIn network, to people who would be open to kind of give me some insight in how they built their business. Most of the people I interacted and engaged with were they built their business more in regards to a specific area that HR people would use, whereas my business is more in regards to a founder, a startup, a nonprofit, a small business owner needs HR. So mine was a little bit different from that perspective, but I just started kind of reaching out, and some of the individuals in my network knew of business developers, basically businesses that really kind of go out and find the work, and then they basically subcontract to you. And
Yeah.
that's how I started getting my business built up. So in less than 6 months, I had 7 clients, and it was really just a phenomenal experience.
Like, I feel like there's two ways. Like, I hear people, you hear stories that like, okay, when they first started out, they didn't get any sales really for years even, and then something clicks. And then there's people that are like, they get everything aligned. And I don't even think sometimes it's like that the business is set up right or the offer is even good. Sometimes just things get lined up, and there is no kind of rhyme or reason. It's just sometimes things just kind of happen. And because I know there's people that sometimes listen to even me, because I joke about, but like my first 3 years ago when I first started out, my first sales call, you can call it ever, was a $25,000 client, like one and done. But I also backed it up with saying, yeah, but there was like 4 or 5 months I didn't have any other new clients because I was still figuring out what the hell I was doing. I just got kind of, no, I don't like the word luck, but like I was kind of lucky. Like somebody knew exactly that. How I got lucky was somebody knew exactly what their problem was, and they knew that I was the one that could solve it. So like I got lucky in that sense. But but there's always this thing of figuring out. So it's good that you kind of figured out that zone of genius for you and kind of leaned into it. So did you hire a coach or anything like that when you first started out to give you direction? What are your thoughts on like business coaches and stuff? By the way, I'm a coach and I hate the coaching industry. So if you even don't like the coaching industry, that's okay too. Like I don't care.
Pros and cons. I think everyone has different needs. And I personally, I am wired as an engineering mathematical brain, and I prefer to just kind of go in and figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And learn. I typically don't read directions when I need to build something.
Yeah. So do I,
Like,
but
that's
also I'm
just
not an
me.
engineer. So my thing is I build it wrong 2 times and then I'll go to the
Ooh.
thing and then I'll
Oh
go,
no,
oh shit,
okay.
my bad.
Yeah. No,
I think
my
that's just
engineering
called
brain lets
stubborn.
me do
I think that's what that is.
yeah, potentially, yeah. But I think, for me, I didn't necessarily go to a quote unquote coach, but I did reach out to my network. I did reach out to the people that has done this, and I'm not a fan of recreating the wheel, right? Like it's been created, let's use it. How do we create it? Like, how can I use it? And how can I do this for my own business? So I had many luncheons and Zoom calls with different people, different folks, try to just download from everybody that I knew, and learn from them and learn from their mistakes and learn what worked for them. And I just, like I said, I just kind of kept plugging and juggling and just kind of ended up finding my niche and making it work. And I've reached out to different networks. I'm on the Chief Network, which is a female leadership network. And through that's pretty much how I have found 2 of the 4 people that work with me, actually 3 of the 5, actually, we just brought some notes on, but, and one was a friend and one was through work. So it just kind of fell in my lap. I will guess, you could say, I put myself out there, and I put myself out there in a very specific, structured way, so that when things were aligning, it just fell into the funneling effect, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and that's what's like. Oh, by the way, real quick, on your end, does it look like you're fully in the frame?
It does. Am I
Okay.
not?
No. If it looks like that on your end, that's fine. It's just I was
Okay.
like, for me, all I see is your top lip and your nose. That's all I see.
Oh no, yeah. You can, yeah.
But no,
More
it's
than
only
that.
because like Connor can work with it. All right.
Okay.
But the other thing is, shout out to Connor, the editor. All right. So, but that's the important thing, is putting yourself out there. Again, people make this mistake online where they go, oh, this person just started and had 7 clients all of a sudden, but they miss the message of, I still was going to networking events. Like I was talking to people, and that's like my, how would you call it? My silver bullet to business, to me, is just activity produces activity. Like the more you do, something's got to move. Like someone's going to remember you, someone's going to do this. And what's interesting is, like, for me, I feel like, and this is going into the marketing side too, because obviously you're starting to do some marketing now. So I want to talk to you about that. But to me, the balance is inbound, outbound, like having both. And the outbound, you were doing outbound, just not knowing it. Outbound meaning you were talking to people, you're going to networking events. Like there's a various different ways to do outbound. One of them is network. Another one is like DMing people on LinkedIn and having conversations online, things like that. But what's funny is sometimes you forget the inbound. And here's the cool thing that I could kind of do if you do it right, is that a really good example of this is somebody that I work with. I was the referral, basically. They reach out to someone. They're like, okay, do you have anybody you've worked with? And they're like, oh, reach out to this guy named Raylan Davis. I can give you his number if you want. The guy Googled me and then saw all my content and then contacts me and then goes, hey, by the way, what do you do? That's what inbound does. Like if you have a body of work for them to go to, when they do find you, they can, but that's where both comes into play. For you, here's my question. This is what has your experience been transitioning from only outbound to now you're making content? And by the way, your content's super freaking helpful. Talk to me about that starting journey, because it's been a long time for me. Like I've been on doing public persona stuff for the last like 3 years, so I'm like used to it. The ups and downs of it, by the way, like sometimes when you first start out, nobody's looking at your shit, And then you have other times where like all of a sudden everyone's looking at your stuff. Okay, great. And then there's the algorithm changes, something and now no one's looking at your shit. And then there's a series of time where you're figuring it out. Like, what's that roller coaster for you on your side, not really doing it before?
Yeah, well, again, I think you and I are such different personalities. I'm an introvert at heart. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a salesperson. I'm not a marketing person. I'm kind of like, get the processes, the systems in play and kind of behind the scenes person. So it's been a big transition for me to pull out my extrovert and be more in front of events and be networking and getting myself out there. I think it also, because it's not my forte and expertise and it's not my comfort wheelhouse area, that I tend to allow myself to, when I do get a new client, let that take over a little bit more and stop with focusing on the content and focusing on the social media and the interactions and so forth. And I have brought in some partners like you, and I have a ghostwriter to help me with content because, again, I'm a math major. I don't like writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I lean into what I do well and what I enjoy, and I find people to fill the gap. And that's actually one of my values, is do what you love.
Yeah.
And I'm living that even in how I'm building my business. I'm not going to go and be a subject matter expert in everything that is going to be a business perspective. I'm just not. I'm going to focus on what I love to do, and that's really interacting with my clients and helping them improve their whole portfolio on how they view people and how they manage those people.
So then now let's transition over to the people side, because now this is where it gets interesting. And so how do I want to get into this? So this is my dilemma that I figured out, but I think I was late to figuring out, is that in order to grow a business successfully, you got to have people. You just, I mean, there's unless again you decide to grow via scaling via pricing, right? You can be a solopreneur and just charge everyone $100,000. Like, you could do that. Like, that's fine. But the funny thing is, you mentioned do what you love, and I realized, and maybe you've met with probably more founders at that level than I have. I usually work with like solopreneurs and consultants, but for me, I realized, you know what I really enjoy? I enjoy being a part of everything. I like knowing a little bit about everything, but I don't want to do the details. So this is where like I had to find people that loved the details. So I guess like the first initial question is, when you're working with a founder, how much of it is based on their personality, or is it kind of like almost cut and paste, here's what you got to do? Like, how does that initial process with a founder, let's say that has like 10 employees, they want, 20 employees, whatever, but they want to grow to that point where they have 100 employees? Because to me right now, I don't know what we want to do. And that's the next question of like for what we do. Like, this next question of what do we want more clients or no? That's the first thing. But if we did, right, the idea of having 100 employees, I'm like, fucking Jesus. Like, that's crazy. Like, I don't know. Like, it just seems like I would need somebody I would need a COO, like a true, like,
Oh yeah.
100%. But anyway, my question, I guess, is the question in there at all? Like, just talk
Yeah.
to me about that process. Cause again, it's interesting to me, cause for me, it's a decision. It's a choice. Like, I could choose to stay where we're at and again, just scale in price and then cap it at like 12, and I don't need more people. Then there's another part of me. It's like, well, what if, is that a limiting belief that I'm putting in my head? Like, if it is, then fuck that. Like, we got to do it now. So anyway, talk to me about like maybe that process of scaling through people. Like, what does that usually look like?
Yeah, I mean, usually when I'm talking to founders, they have made that decision, and they're already like, I'm not usually part of that predetermined, like, should I not?
Yeah.
So it's usually like, I've made that decision, and now I realize I don't know what I'm doing to make that into reality, and that's where they usually end up finding someone like me, come in and help them. What is it that is needed to be put into place from systems and processes to actually then be able to implement that into reality, and making sure that you're doing it in a very succinct way where you're protecting what you currently have and the people you currently have on board while you are growing. And so that's, for me, it's more along the lines of what is the company doing and where do they want to go, and how can me and my team support them. And it goes back to, again, doing what you love doing. I've been on calls with founders where a lot of it's all about compliance. I have this issue from a compliance perspective and I don't know what to do. Great. I'm not going to do it. I don't like doing that. But you know what? I have a wonderful generalist on staff that's what she loves. She loves putting handbooks together, policies, loves reviewing compliance, and that's what she loves to do. And she's on standby, ready to go, right? I have a director who is very much a numbers guy and structured, and he loves to put things in place from a like RFP and systems and tools. And he's very much like, not black and white, but fairly close to that, right? And then
Hmm.
there's me who like, I love just like not daydreaming, but dreaming about what we could do and how we could get there. And yes, we do want to make sure we do it in the land of the law and making sure we're compliant. But where do we really want to go and how do we want to get there? You want to make it fun and have a culture that you're the best company to work for, right? Or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And so through my team, we can pretty much cover everything that is in HR. Me personally, no, because again, I want to focus on what I love doing.
Yeah. Well, this is where it gets fun. And I've had the fortunate of knowing you for a while, and this is where I think we'll figure it out. It's just gonna come with time. And I was honest with you, like marketing never, you can't figure it out in a day, right? But this
Right.
is my dilemma with you is that you're not HR, like you are, but because HR puts it in the head of okay, she's gonna help me write the compliance side. That's initially what I
Mm-hmm.
think of,
Put
right?
my
Like
job descriptions in place and make sure
exactly.
I'm paying people right and
But
on
you're
time.
more on the system side. Like, if I'm hiring you, I'm not only gonna get job description, you're gonna help me figure out like, all right, what does even this person do? Like, do we
Mm-hmm.
need one person to do this or two people to do that? Like, you don't realize how important that is. Like, because we're doing it now on what we're doing because we have to, right? Like, how much? And this is the question that we had to figure out because we're at the startup phase, which was like, how many clients can you handle doing this job?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I literally the direction I went with,
Capacity planning.
yeah, like that's a thing.
Yep.
Again, it's
Yep.
like, but that's why I get frustrated with your brand in particular, because I go, how do we articulate that in a succinct way? And the only thing we can do as of right now is fractional HR. Like that makes sense. I
Mm-hmm.
offload that. But we got to figure out a way, and you've been doing it for a while, so you probably know the frustration that I have with you. But it's like how do we bring in the systems part? Because as a founder, I don't. It's not sexy enough. This job description, I know
Mm-hmm.
I need it, but if as soon as we flip it and go, oh, but with the right system, we can scale faster. Oh, wait, okay, talk
Yep.
to me, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the people you work with,
Well,
do they
strategy,
understand?
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's where, from a general perspective of human resources, people operations industry, that's where the pandemic has actually done this industry a favor and really brought forward what the power of a strategic HR people operations advisor can do for a company. It's really, I mean, now there's even talk of like the companies are even looking at CHROs, CPOs as their chief HR, chief people officers to take over the CEO role. Now we're starting to get invited into the boardrooms. Like there is finally this realization that we bring more value than just making sure we're not just the oil to your machinery to make sure it runs, right? We actually are telling you that, oh, by the way, not only do you need to clean this oil, but you might want to change this oil. You might want to actually look at reevaluating where the oil goes and how it's being used and how frequently it should be. Like we're more than just the oil.
Yeah. Is that kind of part of like now that again, we kind of I don't want to say forced, but we kind of forced you into the spotlight a little bit. Like, do you feel like now part of your mission is to change the way people think about HR?
I don't think, no, I don't look at it that way. I mean, I certainly do feel like it's always been my mission to improve people's perspective and experience. I mean, I got off of a call with a prospective client and he was like, that was not what I thought that call was going to be. This was actually fun and I enjoyed talking to you. And that's never happened with another HR person.
Yeah.
My recent client that we just had, we finished an audit for them and basically told them, based off the audit, here's what the projects and areas we think you can improve. And having ended that call, he goes, that was not painful at all. I expected this to be so much more painful than it was. And you made it actually
What
pleasant.
was what was the pain part that they were referring to?
I think they had this perspective of like, oh, HR is going to come in and do an audit. They're going to tell me I have to do these compliant things. And
Mm,
like, I have to start like, maybe they need to start doing job descriptions and you're going to have to start doing X, Y, and Z. And we're like, no, you're actually really good. You're doing great things. And yeah, there's a little bit of complaints over here, but let's talk about these other fun things that you want to get involved in. You want to do more culture things. You want to be more like this kind of client. And so just, and oh, by the way, if you decide to take the plunge and look for a different platform for your systems, your HR tech stack, we could actually make it more efficient and effective for you guys. And I think your employees would really love it and hear ABCY. And they're just like, wow, that's great. Like, oh my gosh, this wasn't painful at all. In fact, I'm really looking forward to working with you guys and implementing everything that you recommended. So, yeah.
So, but
changing perspective from that way.
Yeah. So it's not less, because again, I think about HR differently now that I've met you, and it's very much more systems oriented. And I see you as a revenue driver, whereas HR I didn't see as a revenue driver before. And I honestly feel like, and maybe you know HR better than me, but when I think about the few HR people that I know, and I know this one, shout out to Natasha, she's so wonderful. Like when I was in corporate, she was like my everything. I loved her. And she was very like, and she was hilarious. I think I told you about her before, but she had this thick like Russian accent, and so you can never tell if she was mad at you or if she loved you. Like it was very like, but it was, she was, oh my gosh, she helped me out so many times. Especially dealing with in sales, like you deal with HR a lot, because if I have to fire somebody, like I'm like, hey, how do I not, get in trouble for firing this person? Like, can you help me? So anyway, but with her, I felt like, and I can talk about this company because the company's gone, and they sold and whatever. But the problem with this company was they put handcuffs on her. Like she had so many great ideas to make the company better and so many ways to be more efficient. And even I started coming around to HR knowing her, because she would talk about revenue generating things. And I was like, I thought you were just HR. And so like, I don't know. I think when I see you, and this is why maybe I'm keep saying like, no, I think we are changing the way people view HR, because HR, the way that you do it, is a revenue generator. It's not just a thing you got to do, and it's like you're like, I don't want to. As a founder, like I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. The other day, Kayla was like, "Hey, we got to finish this job description." I'm like, just write whatever you want on it. I don't give a shit. Like whatever you want to put on, just can they do whatever? And she's like, "No, we got to do it." I'm like, I know we have to, because also, even if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself like, I don't know if I need it, even if. The reason why we're doing all this stuff now is because I don't know what I'm going to want to do in 5 years. Maybe in 5 years I want to sell the agency. I don't know, right? Like I think in my head I'm going to do this forever, but also who knows? If somebody comes to me with the right number, I don't know. But in order to get the right number though, you got to have your shit together. Yeah. Like you can't have stuff all over the place. And I think the worst thing is that we could do as founders is, and I'm learning this the hard way, is everything can't be up here. And that's where I think working with a company like yours is super helpful, because you can kind of help take some of that out of the founder's head and give it to the people who are actually going to fucking make that happen.
Yep. Well, and think about it too. You've used job description several times in the call today, and I would say like,
because I hate it.
Because you hate it, right? But think about it this way, right? Like think about the fact that you are asking someone to come work for you and just please go get XYZ done. Right? And then maybe they do, but what's the next thing? The job description is really setting an expectation on what that person is going to do for you. And it lets you start the relationship with that individual on the same path, so that you both know what is expected of each other and what you can expect from one another. And without that, basically think about it this way. Hey, I want you to go to Boston. Okay. Like, should I walk? Should I run? Should I bike? Should I rent a car? Should I go by boat? Should I go by plane? Should I like attach myself to a pigeon? Like, and when do you want me there? Like, do you want me there in one piece? Do you care if my hair is on fire? Right? Like, think about it from that perspective. You're giving that individual a roadmap of what you expect from them and how you're going to expect that. Right? And so next time someone gives you directions, it's a direction map is what it is.
Yeah.
And then on the compliance piece, it also helps you. So if you have to fire them.
I think, let me ask you this. This is an odd question. At what point, because I know companies that are really doing very, very well, especially in the digital, I feel like the coaching, I'll say the digital entrepreneur space is this weird subset of business. Like I'm going to see how I can word this without giving people away. Okay, so there's so many that I know that at the very least, if I just add it all up, at the very least, they're doing $15 million. At the very least. The best part is you probably never even heard the individual or the company. And so, but I know the way that they've grown is that every single one of their employees, I think maybe one employee is an actual full-time employee. Everything else is independent contractor. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have these other companies that are more corporate, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are like everyone's an employee. They got benefits. They got whatever. So is that like, what is the benefit of doing one versus the other? Like, is
Legal
there?
compliance. I mean, that would be my first thing. The individuals that are running a business with all of their individuals being consultants, depending on where they are in the country, it might not be legal. I mean, think about what California, I'm in California, what California has done to Uber and Lyft, and the fact that those drivers are no longer independent contractors, that situation, right? That whole change of how you treat someone in your business is how you need to look at if they're an employee or not. So that's kind of part one. And it could be even that fact that, oh, well, they're not working full time. Well, they could still be a part time employee. Are you giving them equipment? Are you giving them training? Are you telling them what to do? Are you telling them when to do it? Are you telling them how to do it? Those are all things in which that is considered an employee, and there's other characteristics as well. So you got to be careful that you're within the law, or maybe you just don't give a damn and you'll wait until the law comes at you and then you deal with it at that point in time. That's
Yeah.
completely up to each business owner's decision. I think that it also depends on where you want to grow and how you want to grow. I think that before the pandemic, it was really hard to find consultants because people really were attached to the only way to work is to be an employee. And I
Mm-hmm.
think through the pandemic, that has shifted to be, oh, it's okay. I can be a 1099 contractor. I can work my own hours. I can have a side gig. I can do it this way. It doesn't have to be a W-2 employee situation in order to be able to feed my family and keep a roof over my head. So there's been a shift of that as well. And
What do you see that?
desire.
Yeah, where
Go
do you
ahead.
see that going now? Like now that like that's happened, because I've seen a huge rise. And
Mm-hmm.
listen, also this is why we still have like the Elevated Coach Academy is to support. I know for a fact, especially during the recession, the upcoming recession or depression, whatever you want to say. I don't know. I'm not a whatever. And but I know there's gonna be a bunch of people that are like, man, fuck this. I'm gonna do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I did. And so that's why we were building that up again and
Mm-hmm.
relaunching it, because we want to support them to get started. With that being said, though, like I get the sense that there's going to be a new wave of individuals that are like, well, I'm not ready to be an entrepreneur, but what if I just freelance a whole bunch? Like, it's not quite. It's the opposite of quiet quitting. It's like quietly overworking, like where people have like 5 jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have to
Yeah.
do whatever. So I don't know. Do you
Well,
get
it
a?
goes
Do
it
you,
goes with quiet quitting though too, right? People will have their job and they'll quietly sit there and do the minimum basic they need to do from their 9 to 5 job so that they can go and spend the rest of their energy doing their side gigs, which I think is really harmful for everybody involved in that situation. But
yeah.
to each his own. I think yeah, the freelancing would be probably what we'll pick up more because it is hard to just stop that corporate paycheck and wait until you can get some revenue brought in from your own company and own consultant. If you have that freelancing, you kind of it's that bridging that until you can get to a point where you have so much work from freelancing, you can go ahead and stop with your day job. And so, but it ebbs and flows. I mean, part of me does wonder if with the economy shift, does the first thing that a corporation that I'm relying on is the first thing that they're going to do is probably target those contractors because they don't want to lay off their employees, right? So the first
Yeah.
cost is going to be the contractor cost. Now, you could think of it the other way. Maybe they don't have a lot of employees, or maybe they were just about to start bringing on employees. Well, now they can't, but they still need some business done. Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring on a consultant to at least get something, right? Like that fractional work or that project completed. So you could look at it both ways. And no one is a fortune teller, of course. So I think it'll be interesting. I think that this is partly why corporations are having a hard time finding workers, right? Because workers have gone off and done their own thing. They've decided to make their own company, and employers do still need employees to do the job. It is cheaper to some extent. I mean, obviously you have to think about the fact that as a contractor, you have to pay for your own taxes. You have to pay for your benefits. You don't get paid when you're taking time off. And so are you really getting enough work that's a full 8-hour day? Or maybe you don't need to because you're charging so much. But those are all factors in which, as an employee, you're not really thinking about. Your employer is paying your taxes. You are paying your taxes through your paycheck. They're paying a portion, maybe all, in some cases, of your benefits. They're paying for you to take time off and not do anything. and all the other things that come along as being an employee. So there's pros and cons to both sides.
Yeah, because also like I've been on. I can see why this individual in this company does all independent contractor because they're very much like, can you do the job? Yes, do the job. If you can't, we're gonna find somebody that
Exactly.
can.
That's
And
yeah.
I get that. Trust me. The more but on the flip side though, like I think the more, and it's also a preference probably too, but it's like I want people that are bought in. And
Mm-hmm.
there is a level of like skin in the game when you're an employee. Like it's
Yeah.
more formal. Like I'm here, and ideally I'd
A
like to be
bit
here
more
for
of
the
a
next.
commitment, right?
Yeah,
Like as a contractor, I could come and go and do what I want. As an employee, I've made a commitment to give my time and my energy to that employer.
yeah. I have this weird thing about this quiet quitting thing. I don't quite understand it because it's like just don't work there.
Well, you know what's so funny?
You know?
Honestly, it's kind of a interesting thing because I feel like recently in general in life, people have to put labels on it. But you know what? Quiet quitting has actually happened before, has been happening since before you and I were born. And it really, all it is just, it's someone who isn't giving their full attention to their job and giving them the job all that they can. Obviously, within a, boundary perspective, but like actually doing all they can. And I think quiet quitting, they just finally put a label on it, but it's been happening since.
How do you, from the HR perspective, how do you prevent that? Like, because I had this issue again back when I was in corporate, where first and foremost, it's this weird nuance to it because I had this individual that was on the sales team. We would consider them like a C player, like a B player, B minus. We'll call it a B minus player. And I remember I was like a new manager, and I went to my VP, and I was like, I want to fire them. Like I want them gone. Like they're coming in right on time, they're leaving right on time. Like they're not putting in the extra effort, whatever. And I remember he goes, he's like, well, is the individual getting like a sale a day? I said, yeah. And he goes, you need them because your A player who brings in 20 this day may have nothing tomorrow. That's just the way, the A players are. So there is something to be said about someone that just like is just, calling, like not calling it in, but it's showing up and is doing the work, but they just have no interest in grinding it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have people that are just flat out fucking like, I'm just here to collect a paycheck. So
Right.
I guess
Yeah.
like, is it the culture that creates that? Like, how do you prevent, you
No,
know?
I kind of look at that scenario as that person who's your B minus or even B plus. Those are your job. Those are the people who are in here for a job, and
Mhm.
all they want to do is they want to come in and do their job, and then they want to go, and they don't want to take the job home. They don't want to grow. They just love what they do, or they just it's enough for them because they want to focus on other things, whether it's because they have family or they love to travel or they either have hobbies, whatever it might be. And so I look at those individuals as those are people that just they're here for the job. And then you have the career folks like you and me that just like we're very like we know what we want, we're driven, we're going to go get it, we're going to the A players, right? And then it's those people who are basically like they might be coming in 5 minutes late, they might take an extra 10 minutes on lunch, they might be late to the meeting, they might basically like on a skinny swim tip, like be able to actually get something done. And those are your quiet quitters. Those are the ones who are, you can just kind of see. And the way that I actually have been helping my clients handle this is bringing more accountability into the organization. If you have accountability and you're actually driving to that in your conversations and your numbers and how you're interacting and engaging with your team and the departments and the organization as a whole, the people who are quietly quitting are going to self-elect out because they're going to be starting to be held accountable and they're not
Yeah.
going to want that. And your people who are job people, they're going to be fine with that because okay, you told me I need to do this. Okay, well, I'm a job person. If that's what you tell me to do, I'm going to go get it done. And I'm a job person, right? And so I think that's the distinguish between the two.
So you said accountability. Like, how do you mean accountability? Is it like if they show up 5 minutes late, you got to call it out right immediately? It's more preventative. Like you see it, you got to say something, or is it like how would you I guess like explain accountability side? Because
Well,
my version of accountability is that I'm an ass. So like, don't tell me to hold people accountable because then I'm gonna put people on Front Street and I'm gonna get in trouble. So
well, for me, most of the roles and companies I work with, they're really white collar. So my answer is going to be very white collar specific,
Yeah.
but obviously in retail and blue collar and things like that, it's a little different. But I think for me in a white collar situation, it's not about the fact that, right, Lamb, you came in 5 minutes late. I probably couldn't care less, because ultimately it's about what are you getting done and what's the productivity, and did you do what you said you were going to do on time, and it's
Hmm.
actually quality work. So it's about putting in play ways that you track what is being, like in a team meeting. There's one department where it's not a department that has numbers. It's not like a sales marketing department. It's not something that I can track the productivity by numbers. So what I recommended to the department head was, well, you have a weekly meeting where you have calls of actions based off of the conversation in the meeting, and people own those actions. And then let's start putting due dates on those. Let's actually start tracking that. Did they get it done in time? Was it, how many days was it late? What, and then, maybe you want to add in a rating of how well it was done, right? Maybe an 8 to, like a 1 to 5 or something like that. And you can actually start tracking the productivity of the team, even though your team may not necessarily be a number specific. Like, you're not producing something, you don't have numbers from your sales calls or whatever it might be. So that's one way of doing it. And
Yeah.
it's
The
really
other,
about holding people accountable to what they agreed they were going to do, and making sure you put a deadline on that. I could
yeah.
say I'm going to run a marathon. Great, awesome, I'm going to go run a marathon. But if I didn't ever say when, I'm going to wait until I'm 80. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I just
Yeah.
like, if I say, oh, I'm going to run a marathon this year, great. Okay. It's got 3 more months left. Have you signed up? Have you started training? Like, what have you done to prepare to run the marathon? Right. And so those are the things in which, if you don't have it, it's an OKR basically.
Yeah.
Everything you do through actually creating what are your key results, and you have those drivable measures, and you put that in place, and it really does stick.
Yeah, because I think the reason why I've struggled and thinking about these things is because I come from sales. Like, sales is easy. Did you do the calls? No.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Did you get the
Yeah.
sale? No. Okay. Like, it's like very, but in these other things, I think you're right in that having clear objections, and what I love, objective, not objections. That's a sale thing. But one of the things, so I don't feel as bad now, because one of the only metric that I check is that, did you do what you say you're gonna do? That's
Mm-hmm.
it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even care about anything else. Even with our academy, with our coaches that we work with, it's like every week on Monday we go, what are you gonna do this week? And if you don't do it, it's that thing of alignment of going, you said you're gonna do this, you said you want this. These things are not aligned. Help me figure this out, because I don't
Yep.
get it. And I, like, famously have said, like, my biggest issue with people, and the thing that drives me nuts, is when people say, I want this, I want to be the next manager, or I want this kind of money. Like, I still do sales consulting, and I was working with some clients and some of the reps there, and we had this sit down conversation. Like, okay, you've been here for X amount of years. Like, what do you want? Like, and again, be crazy. I don't care. Like, I'm not the CEO. I'm the consultant. Like, tell me whatever you want. And they're
Yeah.
like, I want to make this amount of money. And I go, in order to make that amount of money, you got to bring in this amount of sales. You got to, get to the point where you're a manager, so on and so forth. And what was interesting was when you start to track their behaviors, it was nice going back to them and saying, hey, you notice the difference here? And then we get to have a really honest conversation to go, your behavior is telling me you don't want that. So let's figure out what you really do want, right? And then
Yep.
we can kind of figure that out. But is there anything else that you want to give to the people or talk about before we jump out of here? Because also, too, like, selfishly, if you could tell, this podcast is more for me. I'm just super interested in what everybody does. But I know that there's people out there, either like me or like, I have somebody that, like, listens to our podcast who's like a VP of sales, and he helps manage these people, and I know for damn sure he could use some of your help. So that's selfishly, I'm like, yo, hit her up. But anyway,
Yeah, exactly.
anything else you want to talk about?
I think then you also have to think about, if you hold people accountable, what are the ramifications if they don't meet it, right?
Yeah.
So, I told you I was going to run that marathon at the end of the year, and I didn't do it. If there's no ramifications for me not doing it, then what does it matter if I keep my word next time or not,
Yeah.
right? And I think, too, accountability is more than just meeting the deadline. Accountability is being honest with yourself and your manager or the team that, hey, I said I was going to do this, but I'm not going to make it. And here's why. Here's the roadmap. Here's the roadblocks I have. I need
Being
help with
proactive.
this. Like just
Yeah.
being, yeah, proactive and being honest with the team that this is not reality anymore. I'm not going to make this deadline unless I get XYZ, or maybe we just need to reevaluate what that project looks like. And just, always staying on in front of it. Right. And just being a part of the team and not being the part of the issue.
Yeah, to me, it's like if more people like took ownership, that's my only thing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if you screw something up, and whenever you come to me and go, Raylan, I fucked up, and here's how I fucked up, and here's how I'm gonna fix it. I'm like, I don't even care. But the second
Yep.
that you screw up, and second you want to put blame, well, you didn't. I'll go, oh, nope, I'm good. Like, no, that's not okay. And I think we honestly, it's because it's funny because we think that, oh, if I own up to it, then I'm gonna get fired. No, like I'm telling you from experience. Again, I can't say all managers, all leaders are like this, but for me, I'll let you screw up all the time if you just come to me, and then we
Yeah.
can figure it out together. And it means you actually care. But I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting, but I think again, I'm really appreciative of what you're doing. And also, I love, and again, for those that are listening, make sure you check out this link that we're going to put in the description, this engagement survey, because I think people would be pleasantly surprised, and I love from a marketing standpoint of why this is the thing you want to give to people, because I think people would be surprised to find out that their teams are not as happy as they were. I was just talking at last story, and then I promise we'll jump out of here because I know that I told you we'd be done in an hour, but there was someone I was talking to recently, and they interviewed their team, and they're like, I don't know, this is a waste of time. Everyone loves working here. Like, I don't know why. And every single thing they got back was like, this place sucks. It wasn't what we thought it was. It wasn't like we're completely away from the vision as when I originally came in as an employee, and it was just all. And he was like, I was blown away. I had no idea. And because again, I think when you're the the founder, the CEO, or whatever, it's really easy to be so vision driven that
Mm-hmm.
you forget about the people. Let's be honest. Sometimes you forget about the people. Like we do. Like I'm not
Yeah.
gonna. And then you get to the point. Like I remember my favorite time ever in my old company was I had a really great sit down with the CEO, and he got some real bad feedback from really bad feedback from the employees. And I asked him a question, which by the way, Gwenevere was so stupid. Like I was just like I wasn't even the VP. I wasn't even like a high executive at this point. Like I was just like a manager. Like I was a nobody basically. And I asked the CEO. It was his fault for sitting in my office and chopping it up with me. But I was like, hey, how did it feel when like all those people were basically saying like that this place sucked, and like how did that make you feel? And he goes, well, I always knew, because he's very like analytical person, and he was like, well, I always knew because we couldn't bring money and because of this, and this, of course, like if we paid for this, it would do this, and he was very, and I go, no, stop. I asked you a question. How did it feel? And he goes, I'm not gonna lie, Raylan, it sucked. I hired
Mm-hmm.
those people. That hurt my
Mm-hmm.
feelings, and they're right. And I was like, yes, but again, I think it was in those moments you could tell that he went into fix it mode.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He was like, well, we got to move this number. We got to do this. Like, versus just going and saying, shit. All right. Like, and it's so true. Like, I think I do that. I have a team of like 6. And I even am like so focused, and I'm like, crap, I should probably reach out and ask them how their day is. What's wrong with me?
Yeah. The biggest thing I see founders mistakenly do is they don't bring their employees, their team along with their decision making process and
Mm,
bring them along in that journey. They just go from, hey, we want to get up that mountain. I'm already here. Why aren't you here? I had no idea you wanted to climb the mountain. We were fishing at the sea yesterday. Like, why are
yeah.
we up in the mountains in snow, right? Like, there's that disconnect of, because typical founders and entrepreneurs, they're always thinking ahead. We talked about this earlier, right? We talked about how you and I are like, we don't celebrate our successes because we're too busy thinking about what we need to do tomorrow. And not bringing along the team and into that journey is where a lot of founders end up missing the boat on that, and getting to a point where you create a culture of chaos, really, because
Yeah.
you're like 20 miles ahead of them, which is where you need to be as the founder and the leader. You need to be thinking forward, but they're the ones behind you doing everything that needed to be done to get yesterday's work done and working on towards today's work. And yet you and I are 2 weeks, 2 years, 10 years ahead of them, right? So it's just helping, bringing them along that journey that a lot of founders just forget to do.
Yeah.
That could mean a big
Well,
difference for a
look,
lot
I'll
of
tell you right
companies.
now, for those that are listening, again, if you're in a position to where you're like, I need some systems, you need to hire someone like Gwenevere. You need to hire somebody because I'm telling you right now, and the beautiful thing about what you're doing as well is that now I don't have the commitment of you are now my employee for years. Like you
Right.
can come in, fix it, get the hell out, beautiful, come
Mm-hmm.
back, check in on me, do whatever. And that's why too, like I've invested a lot of money in systems in the last like 2 months. And it's because I know I am the chaos. Like you mentioned, and again, I hope
Yeah.
my people aren't listening to this actually. Like I don't want them to hear that from you. But I am at least self-aware enough to know that I do create chaos. Perfect example, like when you said the fishing analogy, I literally I have famously got off a call with somebody and immediately called my team and said, "Hey, I need this landing page built today. Here's how what we're going to be doing on it. Get it done today. Let's go." Because we got this new offer we're doing. Like it's I'm famously known for that. I even sent you guys
Mm-hmm.
an email and said, "Hey, we added a new thing." And by the way, the team found out about that after I announced it. I think, pretty
Oh
sure.
boy. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's a lie. We did have a call, and I said, "Hey, we're gonna do this new thing." Anyway, so yeah, I had to bring somebody in, but also like I think for me, personalities do matter because the person that I brought in will call me out of my bullshit, which is I need that. Like she's
Oh,
very
absolutely. You founders need people who are not yes sirs, yes
yeah
ma'ams, right? You need people who are going to be your partner and say, no, that's a bad idea. But go the extra strength of no, it's a bad idea because of this, and here's where you really want to go. And be
oh,
that
yeah
mentor, be that sounding board, be that partner with you from that perspective. And that's exactly what we offer. And going back to what you were saying earlier, yeah, my goal is to come in and have you fire me, like, say goodbye to me nicely, of
yeah
course, but because I did my job, I got you set up from a foundational, and maybe that means that you grew enough where you could bring on a full-time person, or maybe that means that you are where you want to be and you have the right foundation and you're just sailing along smoothly. And if a storm comes along, then you can call me. But until and if that ever happens, like, you're good to go. So
yeah.
that is my goal.
You said something there so brilliantly, and I'm like, God, I just love everything you say because like I have a pet peeve, and I want to paint myself. I need to have Kayla come back on the podcast so she can talk about because sometimes I'm a little bit harder on myself. I swear to God, I'm not like that bad, but I really do dislike when someone tells me no but doesn't give me another solution. It I don't know why, and maybe I need to go to therapy. But like if you tell me no, great, give me another solution. You don't
Yeah.
have one, cool. We're doing what I'm saying then because we
Mm-hmm.
can't do nothing. That's not an option. I'd
Right.
rather screw up and have us like do whatever than in anyway. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna definitely have you back on, and also I got to introduce you to who we had on the podcast last week. Amy and Joseph, they have a recruitment firm, and I see a lot of cool synergy where they can because they see. Look, if they come in and see like think of it from this perspective. I know you know this because you've played around with recruitment, but I can see how it would intertwine where somebody in recruitment and the process is all over the damn place.
Ugh.
Guess what? That's you all day.
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'll link you guys up. They're
I
phenomenal
love my
couple.
workflows. I
Yeah,
love process improvements.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
anyway, thank you so much for joining the
Thank
podcast.
you.
Thank everybody for listening. Go check out, download this survey, please, so your people can stop hating your company. All right. See you guys.
Yes.
Thank you.